During the final months of World War II on July 23, 1945, at 12 o'clock midnight, at the east coast of Karafuto, southern Sakhalin Island, then Japanese territory, now a part of Russia, when a U.S. Navy Gato-class diesel-electric submarine called the USS Barb destroyed a 16-car Japanese military train. This would become known as one of the most difficult and oddly unorthodox successful missions ever conducted, with all 8 American submariners who volunteered to act as spec ops sent somehow surviving. Despite the highly dangerous, suicidal, and near impossible stealth operation. And this true story immortalized itself as the only time in the history of warfare where a submarine destroyed a train. You are now learning about the USS Barb train raid of 1945.
Forward! Give them hell, boys! Last one alive, lock the door!
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video on the channel. You're watching Everything Weapons. Thank you for tuning in once again. Today we're discussing a very cool, specific World War II operation and mission involving the American U.S. USS Barb U-boat taking out a Japanese train in a commando raid that is incredibly unique for the history of warfare in general. It's bigger than World War II. This was an insane task, suicide mission that somehow was very successful near the very end of World War II in 45. So join us today as we learn all about the USS Barb train raid conducted by America in the 1940s during World War II. So let's give a little background on the USS Barb U-boat. So this was an American submarine titled SS-220, and it was a U.S. Navy Gato-class diesel-electric submarine commanded by Commander Eugene B. Lucky. He was nicknamed Lucky Fluky during its 12th and final war patrol in the Pacific Theater. The train raid is one of the most unique and daring operations and military feats in submarine history. So this is a big, true story, insane mission and operation, the only U.S. American ground combat mission on the Japanese home islands during the entire war as well, which is interesting. Now, okay, guys, let's talk about when did this happen. So the USS Barb train raid conducted on the night of July 22nd to 23rd in 1945, specifically around 12 o'clock midnight on July 23rd. This was just weeks before Japan's surrender on August 15th, 1945, during the closing final months near the end, very tip of the end of World War II. Where did this happen? This happened on the east coast of Karafuto, southern Sakhalin Island, then Japanese territory. Now it's a part of Russia. In Patience Bay, part of the Sea of Okhotsk, the railroad ran very close to the shoreline, making it perfect to use commandos from a submarine, right, to blow it up. Now, why did this happen? So the U.S. commander, Eugene B. Lucky Fluky, he spotted Japanese supply trains running along the coast through the periscope while the Barb was operating in shallow waters after rocket bombarding shore targets, another world's first for U.S. American submarines. And with torpedoes running low and few ships targets left, Fluky wanted to disrupt Japanese logistics and supplies heading to the war effort. And it fit his aggressive, innovative style. He famously said the crew didn't have problems, only solutions. The goal was to blow up not just the tracks, but an entire train for maximum impact. So just in case you're curious, the USS Barb was 4th place in terms of US-American World War II subs with tonnage sunk. So the USS Barb, it sunk 17 ships in 4th place total out of all of the US subs, and the Barb's tonnage sunk was almost 100K at 96,628. How did it happen? Let's talk about the USS Barb train raid step by step. So first, the Barb surfaced the ocean water at night just outside the island in very shallow waters. We're talking only about 950 to 1,000 yards offshore from the island, with only about 12 feet under the Nile, under cover of an overcast sky. Every single crewman volunteered, with Fluky selecting 8 men who were regular submariners, not trained commandos, led by Lieutenant William Walk. So it's interesting because the men were sailors, submarine men, used as commandos, even though technically they weren't commandos, and these weren't special forces guys. So very weird. Lucky mission, I guess. I mean, it was a suicide, scary mission that you're most likely to die. Somehow they were successful. But the team paddled ashore in 2 inflatable small rubber boats, rafts practically, about for 600 yards. They had to travel from the submarine to the island ground shore. With 3 men stood guard, and they spotted a sleeping Japanese guard soldier in a watchtower up above, but left him unharmed to avoid detection, which is very funny. You see this a little bit in war movies, but it's hilarious whenever it's like, it's actually easier not to kill this guard. Not even knocking him out is wild, but it's just very funny. I mean, imagine being that Japanese guard, how lucky he was that he survived that. Who knows what happened to him. Anyways, the other 5 American men, sailors, they buried a 55-pound scuttling charge, the submarine's self-destruct explosive, under the railroad tracks between 2 ties. Electricians, mate 3rd class Billy R. Hatfield, just like the Righteous Brother singer Hatfield, Bobby, kind of cool. A former railroad worker, jerry-rigged a simple pressure-triggered detonator using a micro switch and batteries. The weight of the train would complete the electric circuit and set it off, inspired by his childhood trick of cracking walnuts under train wheels, which is crazy. That is insane, because he was literally, used his childhood trick of cracking walnuts under train wheels. Very funny. Anyways, the team quickly returned to the boats and were still paddling back when a 16-car Japanese supplying train carrying troops, so soldiers were on it, ammunition, and supplies, roared by and triggered the blast. The explosion was massive. We're talking huge, big explosion, with the locomotive flying 200 feet about into the air, cars piled up in a twisted, deafeningly loud wreck, creating a mushroom of smoke visible for miles. So, cool guys don't look at explosions, real life incident, right, as they're paddling. I mean, just insane. And really quick, in Battlefield Bad Company 2, there is a mission that is very similar to this, but in real life they don't have the hats, they don't have the US markings, the sailors, and that mission is a lot more historically different and inaccurate, I guess, but same kind of vibes. But it was a cool mission, and I love Bad Company 2. Wonderful game. Anyways, now let's talk about how difficult and hard it was actually to perform this insane mission. Now, it was extremely high risk and difficult, bordering on suicidal and impossible by World War II standards, because key challenges included approaching an enemy coastline in shallow, uncharted waters, high risk of grounding or detection, landing untrained submariners, not special forces, so they weren't commandos, on hostile shores at night with potential patrols. It's insane that these submarine guys were able to pull off this insanely hard mission. All props to them, very impressive, because they weren't special forces. It's just shocking America, like the United States just said, let's just use our submarine guys, they can do it. Let's not send in our most talented and skilled special forces elite soldiers. Oh no, let's not use them. I wonder why. But anyways, improvising and burying the charge undetected while wiring a finicky pressure switch without blowing themselves up. Operating in total darkness with zero margin for error. The entire shore party was exposed for roughly 30 to 60 minutes, so up to an hour, which is insane that the whole shore party they somehow weren't seen. And I mean, the total black of night helps, obviously, but no support if discovered. Escape relied on paddling back to a vulnerable submarine that can take on enemy fire, potentially, right? Now, despite this, the mission and operation succeeded flawlessly with 0 US American casualties and no Japanese altered until the blast. It was a perfect blend of audacity, ingenuity, and luck, perhaps. And it could have been one Japanese guy, because it could have been one Japanese casualty, minus the train, but the outcome and legacy, let's talk about that. So the train was completely destroyed, obviously, with estimated 150 or more Japanese casualties, and the Barb American submarine escaped to safety and added a unique train symbol to its battle flag, actually, with this successful mission. Now, the patrol earned the Presidential Unit Citation, with Fluky, the commander, already a Medal of Honor recipient, the highest American award in the military, from an earlier patrol. He cemented himself as a legendary American hero, right? So the Barb is the only submarine in history credited with sinking a train, which is a weird sentence to say. And the raid is still celebrated in naval history as a masterpiece of innovation and just a really cool mission overall. Will we ever see specific missions like this one involving special forces, commandos, and a U-boat? With this time, they actually use special forces. Now, let's talk about, will we ever see a mission performed by the American military ever similar or like this in any way, involving a submarine with some kind of small force to go on shore and either extract information, a prisoner rescue operation like Mussolini, or even just to blow up a building or train? It's kind of unlikely, but possibly, because similar submarine-launched special attack operations with modern commandos like the U.S. Navy SEALs or equivalents, with Virginia-class attack submarines and converted Ohio-class, are specifically designed for special forces missions. They have a reconfigurable torpedo rooms for SEAL teams and gear, with dry deck shelters and mini-subs within the sub for stealthy insertions. Sub-launched raids, recon, and sabotage still happen and have since World War II, but modern technology, including satellites, satellites, drones, precision strikes, make old-school plant-a-bomb on railroad tracks scenarios and situations rare. Today's operations favor high-value targets, cyber or standoff weapons, and the USS Barb's raid actually helped inspire early SEAL precursors like Scouts and Raiders used the same submarine earlier in the war. But this mission is very unique, and I think it's unlikely for this to happen. I mean, not unless the America has like some kind of aircraft over them, because I don't see them doing an only submarine mission like this. But they needed stealth, so that's why they did it, right? But who knows? Leave a comment down below if you think America will ever perform a stunt and specific mission like this one. It's very weird. It could definitely happen. What's crazy is that no Japanese spotted the U-boat or the shore party or the men as they were paddling in the inflatable slow lifeboats. So no Japanese soldier from the island, or you would think a Japanese plane flying overhead might have spot them, but didn't happen, bro. Didn't happen. The Americans got the W here in this true story. Hopefully you guys learned something and enjoyed listening to this historical true story of the USS Barb train raid. Very cool mission, and it's just such a bizarre story. Really weird thinking a submarine technically sank or destroyed a train that was on board, right? It really shows you how dangerous submarines can be in war, and things like this where it looks like a suicidal and impossible mission can actually succeed. So just a little bit of background lore and context of why these sailors were so experienced was because the American commander Eugene Fluke famously required all of his volunteers to pass survival and situational tests with the 8 sailors and the entire USS Barb submarine crew. Ended the war without a single combat casualty or Purple Heart awarded. The 8 U.S. sailors from the Barb who went ashore in July of 45 to blow up a Japanese train wore standard unmarked U.S. Navy summer dungarees to avoid any giveaway reflections in the moonlight, or during beach infiltration, they blackened their faces using burnt cork, acting as plain all-black war face paint to help conceal their white skin, because obviously none of them were black. They were all white men, American white men. So not good for night combat, the white skin perhaps. Good for snow, but not good at nighttime, right? Especially if you're pale. Regardless, so they wore dark shirts. So that's what these guys actually looked like. They didn't look cool with a bunch of black beanies and caps and American flags. The key gear and details, insanely simple uniform for this operation. They just wore dark work shirts and trousers, which is just really funny because it's such a crucial mission and they just don't have a cool kit or loadout. The idea is hilarious. They wore no dog tags, hats, or official insignia that could identify them as American military personnel, if even captured, which is really not good because the Japanese would not take too kindly to an American who was just wearing a work fit. They're like, what the heck, right? But it's also very dangerous as well because sharks were in those waters, especially at night, attracted to submarine, and if they fell in, that would not be good. And the no dog tags makes it a worse mission, because then you can't be retrieved and your family members are less likely to know what happened to you if you didn't make it out. Let's talk about their footwear. So the Americans, the 8 guys that went ashore, they actually removed and took off their boots, removing their shoes while paddling to ensure silence and stealth, wearing only socks or even going barefoot until they reached the sandy beach. The tools, so the men carried a very heavy 55-pound demolition charge, a micro switch, and tools fabricated directly from inside the USS Barb engine room of the submarine. I don't know if they were backups or not. That would be funny if they were just the tools from the engine room and the submarine had an issue. Would they be like, crap, they took our tools? I don't know. Probably spare tools, but the 8-man commando-like team selected for the mission, because another huge factor, well, 2 factors, is all men were unmarried, so they didn't have a wife and kids and a family back home, so they were more willing to say yes to an insane mission, and all were former Boy Scouts, carried out the only ground combat operation on the Japanese home islands during World War II. So that helped out and gave these sailors, I guess, a better edge than just a standard sailor or standard submarine guy, because they had a little bit of survival, hiking experience, stuff like that. That helped out a lot here, I think. Now let's talk about weapon loadouts that the 8 sailors used. So pretty standard stuff for Americans in World War II. Nothing crazy or even just really specific or experimental weapons here, sadly, but just the classics, Colt 1911, possibly some Colt revolvers or Browning pistols as sidearms, most likely just 1911 45 ACP. And then the men also had Thompson M1A1s, which are 45 ACP submachine guns, as well as M1A1 carbines, which were intermediate rimless cartridges that were .30 carbine, which is 7.62 times 33 millimeter. So it's pretty confirmed that no grease guns were used on this mission, the smaller submachine gun than the Thompson, but looks like they just had Thompsons, no shotguns used, no snipers, no machine guns, no crazy stuff. And this isn't totally confirmed, but they possibly had pineapple standard American grenades of World War II on them, but probably not. But you never know, because American subs did weird things. Like one story, one used rifle grenades to finish off a Japanese ship, but I'll do a separate video on that. But drop a like, a thumbs up, guys, is greatly appreciated. It does help me out in the algorithm. You've been watching Everything Weapons. Type as a comment down below of any video idea you want me to do, any real-life story. And check out my older videos on the channel. Lots of good content to binge, random, historical, and weapon-related content, guys. And thank you very much for watching. It really means a lot to me. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Subscribe, make sure you ring the bell. That way you don't miss a video I post. And take care. Peace.